You know, in a world that so often glorifies aggression and dominance, where do we actually find real strength? Well, today, we're going to dig into a pretty radical answer from an ancient text, the Lotus Sutra, and it completely flips our modern idea of power on its head.
So let's just start right there. In a world that is just full of conflict, what does strength really even mean? Is it about being the loudest, the most powerful, or is there another way to look at it?
It's a huge question, right? But it turns out this ancient text has a really surprising answer. It introduces us to a figure called the Giver of Fearlessness. And honestly, that title alone is pretty fascinating.
The text calls this figure a Bodhisattva-mahāsattva, which is basically a great being who's dedicated their life to helping everyone else. And it says this being gives fearlessness when things get really bad. Just think about that for a second. The ultimate gift isn't winning the fight or just getting past some obstacle. It's the complete and total absence of fear. In a world practically run by fear, that is a truly radical idea.
So who is this Giver of Fearlessness? Well, the text calls them World-Voice-Perceiver. Now, you might actually know this figure by other names like Kannon or Kanzeon or Avalokitesvara. The names change depending on the tradition, but the core idea is always the same. This is the pure, unadulterated embodiment of compassion. And this, right here, is where it all clicks into place. The source of this incredible strength, this ability to give fearlessness, it doesn't come from force, it doesn't come from might. The text is super clear. It comes directly from compassion. And there's no ambiguity here. This figure isn't just a compassionate person, they are compassionate itself. It's their very essence. And this just completely reframes what we think compassion is. It's not a weakness, it's not some soft, fuzzy feeling. In this view, compassion is the absolute bedrock of unshakable strength. Okay, so we have this really profound idea of compassion being the ultimate strength. But let's be real for a second. How does that actually fit into the world we all live in? This is where the source really highlights a fundamental clash of values. And this lays out that clash perfectly. On one side, you've got what the source calls the world's way, where we're basically taught that aggression and domination are valuable. Then, on the other side, you have the compassionate way, which leads to fearlessness and mutual benefit. I mean, these two paths look like they're heading in completely opposite directions. And the text does not pull any punches about the harsh reality of this worldview. It says if you choose not to dominate, you're often just seen as a target. And that's the fundamental challenge, isn't it? How do you actually practice compassion in a world that seems to reward aggression? So if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do we build up this compassionate strength? Well, the text suggests the work isn't really about changing the world out there, but about changing our own perspective, right here, inside. And this is where the real work begins. The text says the very first step is to dismantle the delusion of our own self-importance. Wow, that's a huge challenge to our whole modern obsession with the self, with me. The idea here is that our ego, our constant focus on ourselves, is the very thing that's blocking us from finding real fearlessness. So, okay, if we can actually start to challenge that feeling of self-importance, what happens next? A whole new path opens up, and it's one that leads to what's called mutual benefit. The source lays this out so clearly. First, we chip away at that delusion of self-importance. And once our own self isn't the center of the universe anymore, we just naturally start to see other people differently. That's step 2. We recognize that they're just as worthy of happiness as we are. And that shift in perspective leads directly to step 3. We start actively looking for ways for everyone to benefit, together.
And this is such a key distinction. This is not about self-sacrifice. It's not a zero-sum game where somebody has to lose for somebody else to win. According to the text, true compassion is about finding that creative path forward where everyone wins. It totally redefines what success even looks like.
So let's just end with this question to chew on. If this ancient text has it right, if compassion really is the true source of fearlessness, then what are we actually protecting with all our aggression? What are we really defending, if not our own fear?